Warning: the following podcast is intended for mature audiences and does contain spoilers. If you are sensitive to anything in particular, I recommend looking up this film on doesthedogdie.com. It is a user-submitted database that is filled with all sorts of different trigger warnings and content warnings for people who may be sensitive to those things. Check it out and take care of yourself. Welcome back to We Creeps, the podcast where you can get all of your spooky without any of the scares. I am your host, Evan Exhumed, and every week I provide an in-depth summary, review, and trivia for the latest horror releases, classics, and some weird ones you probably never heard of. So just an official update to the formatting of the show, you may have noticed that we now have segments. So we've got the summary portion, the review portion, and the trivia portion. If you want to skip between any of those, you can actually find the timestamps in the description of the episode now. So, for example, if you're a horror fan who wants to hear my review of it, you can just go ahead and skip that without spoiling yourself. So it's just a way to kind of accommodate the different types of listeners. So yeah, just check the description if you want to jump around at all. Today's episode, we will be covering the highly anticipated horror film, Five Nights at Freddy's. This film was directed by Emma Tammy. The story was written by Scott Cawthorn, Chris Lee Hill, and Tyler McIntyre. It stars Josh Hutcherson, Elizabeth Lale, Piper Rubio, Mary Stuart Masterson, and Matthew Lillard. I am not a Gen Zer. I'm a millennial, so I was not really the right age to get into Five Nights at Freddy's, but I am pretty familiar with the lore. I've watched extensive videos on theories and things like that and watched playthroughs, so I have some knowledge and understanding of what appeals to it and why it appeals to kids and, you know, Gen Z, younger people in general. So I thought it would be fun to review this movie. Just a fair warning to any mega Five Nights at Freddy's fans who listen to this podcast, I did not really love this movie. I had a lot of problems with it, so if that's going to upset you, just skip this episode if you have any issue with the series being criticized at all. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started on the summary portion of the episode.
Five Nights at Freddy's really needs a
Over
new
there.
theme song.
Over where?
I don't know.
Hey, Scotty called me.
The film opens up at the titular location, which is Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, and we're watching a security guard running through the entire establishment, afraid, trying to go through the vents, and he suddenly is thrown into a chair with iron straps and a giant mechanical Freddy bear head with a bunch of blades and stuff and gears is placed on his head, and the camera turns before we see anything, which is kind of lame in my opinion. But yeah, so he's killed by this mechanical head thing. We don't actually also see the mechanical creatures physically put him into the chair, which I think would have just been really funny to animate. So that's kind of the introduction we get here. For those who don't know, Freddy Fazbear's is basically like Chuck E. Cheese's. It's the whole premise of this series is based around sort of a play on the concept of the animatronics and stuff of Chuck E. Cheese being really evil and cursed. And so just if you're someone who's not familiar with Five Nights at Freddy at all, that's just some pretext, some preamble for you to understand what's going on here. We then jump to the main character, who is Mike. It's the early 2000s. He's waking up, taking some kind of anti-anxiety medication or mental health medication. We learn that he is taking care of his sister, Abby. He is like a big older brother. We don't know why yet he has his sister, but he has her. We then learn that he is a security guard at the mall. He's hanging out with a friend, and all of a sudden he sees a child by himself. And then suddenly that child is gone. And so Mike just kind of flips the fuck out and sees this man holding this little boy's hand. And he just tackles this man into a fountain and just proceeds to beat the shit out of him. And then suddenly we see him with a career counselor named Steve Raglan, who is played by the very famous Matthew Lillard, who is now at the stage of daddy. I mean, he's got the little white, gray, black salt and pepper stuff going on with his hair. And I'm just going to say it. he's daddy in this. And I mean, this is the main motivation I even wanted to watch this movie, because I love Matthew Lillard. So Steve basically tells him, look, you've gotten fired from a crap ton of jobs. I have one gig for you. It's super shitty. Be a security guard at this abandoned pizzeria like Chuck E. Cheese. And you have to do it overnight and just keep the place clean. And so, because of his sister Abby, Mike is like, well, I don't think I can do that. And so Steve hands him a card, very kind of suspicious and menacingly, and says, well, if you change your mind, here's my card. So Mike goes home and we see a delinquency notice on his door. I think that's assuming that his little sister is not going to school. So he's going to get in trouble for that, or she's going to get evicted. I don't know. The note's kind of weird. It wasn't very clear. Mike then goes to sleep, and we see that he has a dream where he is a child at a park. And we see that this is not just a dream, but a memory. And we see that his brother was kidnapped at a very young age. He's maybe like 10 years old here. So this sort of fills in the blank as to why he gets so freaked out. We then go to Abby's school, where Mike is sitting there with his shitty Aunt Jane and her lawyer with like a counselor. And apparently Aunt Jane wants to adopt Abby and thinks that he's a bad parenting model, which is probably not untrue, but apparently he believes that she just wants Abby in order to like get the monthly check for adopting a child through the foster system or something. I don't think you actually get money for adopting a child that's like a family member. I think that's only if they are a child unrelated to you from the foster system. And even if you do that, you only get about $1,000 to maybe $1,500 a month, probably less so, especially in the 2000s. So this motive for the aunt doesn't really make any sense, which is not crazy in my opinion, considering the writer, Scott Hawthorne, is not very good at consistency or, plot holes. So that's just my little take there. So then Mike decides to take the job as the security guard at Freddy Fazbear's because he needs a job to take care of his little sister, who the counselor thinks that he's the best option for. Personally, I disagree. He is really not emotionally stable. He can't keep a job. He's not very tender or kind to her. So it just feels weird. But yeah, he takes the job and he goes to Freddy Fazbear's. And of course, it's abandoned, super creepy. The electricity doesn't work very well, but it's probably going to be a really easy gig. So why not? From there, Mike watches a old training video, kind of like an 80s vibe. And we learn a little bit about the animatronics. They're like advanced, they're highly customizable, and, they're very human like in the way that they're designed. And so that just kind of gives us a little bit of an idea how they work mechanically and how they move. So then Mike takes his first nap of the movie and he has that dream again where his little brother is taken. This time, though, he's an adult and he turns around and there's like 5 kids behind him just kind of standing there menacingly. He tries to talk to them, but they all just start running away. And he, as a fully grown adult, is somehow outrun by like 4-foot children. So I don't really think the math works out there, but this is dream logic. So we'll go ahead and forgive that. Suddenly, we're now at a diner with the babysitter that Mike has hired to take care of his sister during the nights. She's meeting with the evil aunt, and we also get a little cameo from a famous YouTuber who covered Five Nights at Freddy lore named MatPat. It's pretty cringe, but really cute at the same time, and as someone who watched MatPat videos, I did think it was a nice little gesture to let him in the movie. Anyway, so the babysitter is revealed to have been working for the evil Aunt Jane, and she's been paying her to essentially spy on Mike and Abby. And of course, he's just a normal dude, so nothing has actually come up that could be used against him in court. Not that anything could actually be used against him in court because they were illegally getting evidence, but anyway, so she decides to spend $1,000 to hire her and her boyfriend or something to go fuck up the place that Mike is working, the Freddy Fazbear's, in the middle of the day, I guess. So it wouldn't even be his fault that it got broken into. But yeah, so she pays them $1,000 to go do that, and that somehow is going to help make him lose his job, and then she'll get custody and then get money from the state, I guess. It's just, it's not very well thought here. Like she's already paying probably into the thousands of dollars to have this lawyer consultation with her at all times. And then she's paying $1,000 to have these people do these illegal things that the lawyer just is like fine with. He's like doesn't have a backbone or something. It's just this just doesn't make any sense. Mike then is shown to be going back to work. He of course takes his second nap of the movie and has a dream again. He sees the five kids. This time he actually catches up with one of them, but it like cuts him or stabs him or something and he bleeds and then he wakes up. When he wakes up, the lights and electricity are flashing and freaking out. One of the animatronics is seen menacingly in the background. He resets the power, and then all of a sudden, a police officer is knocking on the door, ringing the doorbell. And so, this is where we meet the character Vanessa. As she introduces herself, she's like, "Oh, you must be the new security guard." So, that implies she has some familiarity. She also notices that his hand is bleeding, implying that the cut that he got in the dream somehow changed or manifested into reality. She says that the pizzeria is on her route as a cop, and she just really loved this place as a kid, so she just likes to check in on it, I guess. So she shows him the animatronics and how they work, and she's like, "This is the best, right?" And I guess she stays with him like the whole night, because then he locks up and it's like daytime. So I don't know what the fuck kind of cop. I mean, I actually, you know what? This is probably pretty common for cops. They probably just fuck off and do whatever they want all the time. Whatever. A cab. So yeah, the babysitter and her friends and her boyfriend or whatever break in after Mike leaves and start to fuck up the place. Of course, this being a horror movie, all the animatronics come to life and brutally murder them. Unfortunately, none of that happens on screen. Everything is inferred. One of the girls gets bitten in half, but you only see the shadow of it. This is a kid's movie, I guess. It's PG-13. Megan was way gorier, oddly enough, but yeah, they really did not take advantage of the gore factor here. And yeah, the animatronics come to life and just murder the shit out of all of these people vandalizing the Freddy Fazbears. So then later that day, Vanessa shows up to Mike's house, says that the place has been broken into. She also found his sleeping pills there and says that he can be held liable for the break-in because he's too whacked out or something. He's too whacked out, I guess, on sleeping pills to properly guard it, but that still does not. I mean, it wasn't his shift. He's only there for the night. So it again, it's just weird that she decides to show up there. And so anyway, they decide to go for a walk, and he reveals how his brother was taken from him, and it caused him PTSD, and he has trouble sleeping as a result because he can't stop thinking about his brother being kidnapped. And so they have a little heart to heart there. There's a little chemistry between Vanessa and Mike, and yeah, I mean the same things seem like they're going to be okay. She's not going to get him in trouble. The next night comes, and of course, the babysitter has been murdered by Freddy, so he has to take his little sister to the job. Mike spends the rest of the night cleaning the entire facility and then takes a nap. So while he is sleeping, Abby wakes up and hears like a little boy's voice. She then follows the little boy's voice to find out that it's all the animatronics. Mike then wakes up and runs to rescue her or see her. But it turns out the murderous animatronics are actually really chill. And it's revealed that they are the missing children inside the animatronics. So they're like spirits trapped piloting these Gundam mech suits, basically. And she is just totally fine with them. She says they're totally chill. She's like, "Chill out, bro. These are my homies. I was just screaming because they were tickling me a lot." And Mike seems to have literally no reaction whatsoever, especially for a person who like has a PTSD meltdown when he sees a child get taken by their parent. So his underreaction is a little confusing, but I guess he just accepts that spirit children inhabiting animatronics is just part of the job now. To be fair, he is a little concerned at first, but his just ability to accept this so quickly is just really funny. However, we do see that the drawings that his little sister has been making do include the ghost children, and this is before she even met the animatronics. So Mike is a little bit concerned about that, but he thinks that it might help him find his brother. Why he thinks his brother is even still alive at this point is a little hopeful, but kind of naive in my opinion, but oh well. So Mike and Abby have breakfast, and he clarifies with her. He's like, "Hey, those animatronics are for sure ghosts, right? Like, And Abby's like, of course they are, you dumbass. How else would they move? And he's like, ah, right. So again, it's just accepted that ghost children just live in the animatronics and everybody is fine with it. So one of the drawings Abby makes also is Mike's younger brother being kidnapped in the car. And so he asks her to ask the spirit children where he might be. Also something about an evil rabbit or evil yellow rabbit. That character comes up a lot, the pictures of him in the background and stuff. So that's just something to note here. Mike then goes back to Freddy Fazbear's for his next shift, and Vanessa is just already there staring at a bunch of drawings. She stares at a yellow rabbit one, and I just don't think she's just doing her job. I actually doubted if she was even a real police officer at one point, but apparently she is. So this is just what she does, and maybe it's a small town, nothing happens. I don't know. It's also revealed that Vanessa just knew about these spirit children animatronics, and just failed to mention it to Mike, despite being there every fucking night. And yeah, there's a little montage scene where Abby and Vanessa and Mike build a fort with the animatronics for Abby to play in. Mike also then later questions Vanessa on how the fuck she knows where everything is and all about the history and why she just seems to know everything that he doesn't. And she just kind of brushes it off and tells him he needs to stop worrying about his dead little brother. Abby then, while playing with the animatronics, touches one of their guitars and gets shocked or electrocuted and passes out. Vanessa gets really mad about this and tells Mike to get the fuck out of the restaurant and to take Abby home, and that if he ever brings her back again, she will shoot him. So pretty standard police response, I would say. So the next night, Mike has his aunt watch Abby, who is very mad about that, and she tells him that she hates him. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty typical response from a child, but he is doing the right thing by keeping her at home and safe. However, now that he doesn't have to watch his sister, he does take another nap. Mike re-enters the dream world where his brother was kidnapped, but his brother is not being kidnapped at this point. The ghost children appear and say, hey, we'll let you have this really dope-ass dream where you get to chill with your brother every night if you just give us Abby. Like, just give us her soul, let us kill her, or I don't know what they want to do with her. Probably turn her into an animatronic. And he's like, yeah, I guess that would be fine. But then he changes his mind and gets really upset. And while he's asleep, he gets kidnapped by one of the animatronics. He wakes up strapped to that weird chair thing, and a Freddy mask with all the gears and blades or whatever, like a saw torture trap, is about to be put on him. His first reaction is amazing and instant, and he unscrews the padlocks with his fingers, just knowing where they are and instinctually to do that, which is very impressive. And he gets out of the chair, saving his face. However, he does find all of the bodies of the babysitter and her gang inside this room. They're all fucked up. They do show a little bit of gore here, which I really liked, but for the rest of the movie, there's not really much of anything. Then, as Mike is trying to escape one of the animatronics that's chasing him, we cut to Abby and her aunt. I guess Freddy can just leave the restaurant whenever he wants. And so he either kills or knocks out the aunt, and the child that inhabits Freddy, his spirit comes out and tells Abby, hey, let's go. Let's come back to the pizzeria. We can come hang out. And so Abby comes with him. They actually take a taxi. So the taxi driver drives Abby, this little child, and a like 500-pound animatronic to Freddy Fazbear's, which is fucking hilarious. Mike then wakes up. He has been rescued by Vanessa. She tended to his wounds. And apparently she just knew about all the dead bodies just rotting away in the restaurant. And she's just like, it's really complicated. I don't want to talk about it. And yeah, she is just not a very good policewoman. And, just letting bodies of people who have been murdered by child spirit animatronics just rotting away in the restaurant that she's aware of. So she's a shitty cop. I truly don't even know if she's a real cop at this point. So Mike's like, we gotta save her. They're gonna kill her. And Vanessa's like, okay, I guess. She then reveals that the ghost children not only have the spirits of the children inside the animatronics, but also their physical bodies, which I'm sure just absorbed and rotted, or their skeletons are in there or something. I don't know. And it was done by the creator of Freddy Fazbear's, which was William Afton, who is her biological father. And she pulls out a photo of her as a little girl with the yellow bunny animatronic, which is implied to be William Afton, the owner. She says he has some ability to influence them, which kind of makes sense, I guess. I don't know. So I'm not sure if the kids actually want a friend or if William Afton is like telling them to kill this little girl to make another animatronic child. I don't know. Apparently, Vanessa also knew that her father kidnapped Garrett, Mike's brother. She didn't figure it out at first, but I guess she had the same little airplane that his brother had been playing with when he got kidnapped. So it's implied that she got some of his toys or something. I don't know. So she gives him like a taser and a cattle prod and tells him that electricity is the way to stun them. And she decides to not go, but just lends him her police squad car. Again, horrible policewoman. So Mike sneaks back into the Freddy Fazbear's and he throws some water onto the ground and uses the taser to shock most of the animatronics. But the chicken one, Chica, takes his sister to be put into one of these animatronic things, which will kill her, and then her spirit will be trapped in it, I guess. But Mike comes to the rescue, uses the other taser, and shocks the robot, and it passes out. Honestly, you can get a taser at a lot of places. You couldn't get one back on Amazon in the 2000s, I don't think, but they're not hard to get. So these animatronics seem pretty easy to beat, at least stun for a while, which in my opinion kind of removes most of the fear of them. Like they're that easy to take down. So Mike ends up getting startled by one of the animatronics, who's like a tiny cupcake thing, and he starts to fight that. Abby runs away and tries to hide. So they get split up for a little bit. He dunks on the fucking little cupcake robot thing and goes to find his sister. Then he runs into William Afton, who's in this like decaying robotic yellow bunny suit. He tases the bunny animatronic, but it just slaps that shit out of his hands and starts to charge him. While he is fighting William Afton, his sister is being chased by another animatronic. Vanessa shows up, decides to help, and she tases the fuck out of it, rescuing his sister. So after beating the shit out of Mike, William Afton, the yellow bunny guy, ends up saying, I killed your brother, now I'm going to kill you, so it's only fair. He wakes the rest of the animatronics up, and they all gather around Mike. Vanessa shows up with a gun and points it at William Afton, who we know is her father. He takes off the animatronic mask to reveal it was the career counselor, Steve, from earlier. Steve is Michael Afton. He owns Five Nights at Freddy's, Fazbear's, or whatever. So that's kind of the big plot twist. He then like yells at Vanessa as they're fighting, saying that she had one job, which is to keep him in the dark and kill him if he figured anything out. But I'm sort of like, if you already had your daughter watching this place and monitoring it, why did you need to hire a random security guard to look after it? Like, if you didn't want Mike to find out about any of this, why did he hire him? And why doesn't he just have his daughter, who apparently can just hang out there every night anyway, to just watch after the children and let him keep doing whatever he's doing? Like, this makes no sense. So while they're struggling, he ends up stabbing his daughter, Vanessa, and she falls to the ground, passing out. So then Mike realizes that the drawings have magic power. So he gets his sister, Abby, to make a drawing of William Afton, the bunny guy, killing all of the children to let them know that he is actually the one who harmed them, not anyone else. And apparently that works. She like puts it up on the board with all the other drawings, and that somehow cures them, which I think implies that William Afton was controlling them through children's drawings. So then they all gang up on William Afton, and the cupcake one, that's like a soccer ball size, jumps at him and bites him, and I guess it causes the suit to malfunction, and the suit starts to close in on him as if there was no person in there, which begins to kill him. He throws his mask back on and screams, I come back, I always come back, which is a reference to the games. But for people who are watching this and have never seen it, and because this is its own cinematic universe, makes absolutely no sense, because he has just been like a career counselor for the last 20 years. So we'll see where that goes. So I guess after William Afton dies, they drag his body to the back or something, and the whole place starts to explode and lights shatter. And so Mike, Vanessa, and Abby get out in time and survive. We then fast forward a little bit. I guess Vanessa is in a coma, but Mike visits her regularly. But everything else seems to be going really well for Mike. He has a good relationship with his sister. They've sort of moved on from it a little bit. And at the very end, we see a little ghost child looking at William Afton, I guess, slowly dying in the bunny suit. And they just shut the door on him. And then the movie ends. And that's it. So, yeah, that was an interesting ride. I also just realized that Mike brought in a wounded police officer who had just been stabbed with no explanation besides him being the one. So unless Vanessa wakes up anytime soon, I don't know if the courts will really like that on his track record. Now, with the summary portion completed, let's move on to the review stage.
Five Nights at Freddy's, that's where I wanna be.
Overall, I did not enjoy this movie. I thought there were too many things in the film that were distracting to me. There wasn't enough gore. There were too many plot holes. Character motivations didn't really make sense, and nobody really responded like an actual human being would. If I encountered ghost animatronics, I would probably just try to get a different job. But see, it's just things like that that aren't really well thought and create large plot holes in my head that make it really difficult to enjoy this movie. So if you're not really a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's or didn't grow up with it, you probably won't enjoy this, so I gave it a 2 out of 5. That said, it is a movie for children and young teens. A lot of the young teens and children who enjoyed these games when they came out are now adults, so I don't really think this movie was made for me. I don't really think it was made for horror fans who are not fans of Five Nights at Freddy's. I think if you are a fan, if you grew up with these or love these games, you're going to have a blast with this. So, although for me personally, it's a 2 out of 5, I think if you're a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, you're going to give it a 5 out of 5. So, keep that in mind if you decide to watch it or not. With the review portion out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to Trick or Trivia. Trivia number 1, the animatronics were created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop and was responsible for their puppeting. I have a little doubts about whether or not CGI was used because there were some parts that definitely seemed animated, but we're just going to go ahead and believe what the studio says, just for the fun of it. Trivia number 2, this is a Blumhouse picture, and it is the first video game-themed Blumhouse production. Trivia number 3, and this one kind of surprises me and makes me a little sad. The director Emma Tammy is the 4th woman to direct a film based on a video game. The 4th. Out of all time. That's it. The others were Annabelle Jankel for Super Mario Bros. 1993, MJ Bassett for Silent Hill Revelation 2012, and Mari Asato for Fatal Frame 2014. That's all I've got for you. Join us again next week for more Trick or Trivia. That's it for this week's episode. Join us again next week for another new horror summary, review, and trivia. Make sure to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And if you're a new listener from TikTok, some of them have been blowing up recently, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. You can also support the show directly by joining my Patreon. You can donate different amounts to help support the show. We also have merch on tpublic.com, super size inclusive, awesome customer service. Go check that out if you want to rep the show. And if you do get a shirt, make sure to tag me so I can feature you on my Instagram. With all that said, I hope you have a wonderful start to your week. Maybe take a visit to Chuck E. Cheese's, see if any of the animatronics are possessed. But whatever you end up doing, don't forget to stay spooky out there.